You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Barbell Logic, Beast Over Burden. I'm your host, Nikki Sims, exclusive coach and CXO at Barbell Logic. With me today, as usual, is Andrew Jackson, also an exclusive coach and the COO.
Hello.
Barbell Logic. And we have a very special guest today. We're joined by Mac McGregor, also an exclusive coach, who is the only Barbell Logic coach in Scotland. Good to have you, Mac. Hello.
Hey, good evening. I'm both excited and terrified at the same time. How you doing?
What are you terrified about?
Well, this is my first ever podcast. I usually keep myself locked away from the world and very private. So yeah, this is a whole new experience for me.
Oh, it's so good to have you. You've been putting out some really wonderful content lately. I know you have a blog going, your Instagram, which is Capricorn Fitness. You're really telling a lot of really wonderful stories and helping your lifters. So you have to put yourself out there as a coach, and it can be kind of a scary thing to do. But I really like what you've been contributing, just so you know.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's one of those things, isn't it? When you start your own business and then you find out whether you like it or not, you have to be in marketing and sales and social media, and you have to entertain. That's been quite hard for me to get my head around. But I think the blogs have been very useful just to outpour some ideas.
Well, it's nice. It's relatable.
I quoted Schwarzenegger before, but I recently saw him talking about actors in the 80s. It was like anathema for them to sell. They thought, I'm not a salesperson. And one of Schwarzenegger's big skill sets was putting himself out there and selling, making connections and, self-promoting himself a bit. But if anything you're doing, you end up having to sell. And I've always had a problem with selling because it felt like I was manipulating, or at least when people sell to me, I feel like I'm being manipulated. But I like the idea of thinking of selling as connecting with other people and helping them have the right information to make a decision. And for somebody who's in Scotland coaching strength clients, you got to do that for people to be able to find you, I would imagine. It's not like you're just bumping into people at a big commercial gym or something, right? You got to put yourself out there a bit.
Yeah, that's right. We're not a big country, but there's not many people here. It's so empty. But I think you're right. I was born in the 70s, and a salesman to me was the image of the seedy secondhand car salesman who was there to rip people off. And if you were trying to sell, you would perhaps see yourself in the same image. And that's pervaded with me. It stayed with me for a long time. But that idea of just being authentic and just trying to start a conversation with someone, and hopefully that leads you to providing some assistance in some way. That's how I'm looking at it. And that's one of the reasons why I love the podcast. It's very authentic. It's very upfront. There's nothing hidden. And it just takes that icky sales thing away out of the picture for somebody like me.
Yeah, I don't really like salesy stuff either. Not my cup of tea. But talking about lifting and eating, I really enjoy.
Yay.
Your family lives with you. Your wife, Melissa, also coaches nutrition at your gym. I've seen some really cute videos of your daughter doing chin-ups lately. And I know that's something that's really important to, us as coaches, and then anybody who gets into lifting. We just can't help but want everybody to find it as well, to unlock strength for themselves. And it was really sweet when you started posting those videos of your daughter doing chin-ups. And, I don't have offspring of my own, but from what I understand about having kids, you really have them for two reasons. The first one is for chores, and then the second one is to just repair all the issues that your parents instilled in you, right? Those are the main two reasons to have kids. Just kidding.
Or number three, purely by accident?
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Which is clearly not the case. Not the case. No shotguns here.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But I was so curious, how did you and your whole family start getting into I guess, experiencing strength together.
Well, and as a lead into that, I would like to hear, just also for the audience, how you got to that point of, what's your backstory, your elevator pitch of strength that brought you into then wanting to include your family.
Sure. Okay. So in terms of my own history, I joined the Air Force in 99. And leading up to that point, I, like most of my peers, we were into cross-country running, climbing trees, pretending to be soldiers, all those kind of things. And the idea of lifting weights just wasn't around. There weren't any big gym facilities near us. We didn't have any famous or well-to-do powerlifters nearby. So we would do those things. We'd play football and we would be fit. Just picture lots of small, lean people running around playing football. And when I joined the Air Force, I had really been looking up to my granddad as a bit of a mentor and role model. He was a Royal Marine Commando in the Second World War. And he was often extolling the virtues of being able to move fast. And obviously these guys were lean, wolf-like creatures. And, he operated in some very, very tough circumstances. And I always looked up to him for that. So when I joined the Air Force, I was already in that mold of running, mountaineering, climbing, circuit training. And as I went through my training, which was pretty tough, I was in an organization called the Irish Regiment. It was all about moving fast, but also carrying lots of heavy weight and not getting hurt over long distances. And it didn't quite add up. We swam, we ran, we did assault courses, we were beasted mercilessly around the parade ground, etc. And then said, hey, okay, now you can run, carry this. Okay, all the way over there, rough terrain, day after day, mile after mile. It was pretty horrendous. And people would break, and they would break bad. Lots of dropouts and whatnot. And at the end of it, you would have a core of individuals who were mentally incredibly robust. And this mixture of just lucky not to be hurt, I think. And so there was this idea of, if I do all this moving around and carrying things, I don't need to do legs. And things like circuit training, push-ups, chin-ups, stuff like that, that was the immediate go-to because it was cheap to do and you could get hundreds of people doing it at the same time. You didn't need lots of equipment. And so that was my background with physical training, physical exercise. And I started experiencing some problems in about 2008, 2009, where I was having some pretty nasty bowel movements. And I found that I had inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, and it was incredibly debilitating. I mean, I will spare you the grotesque details of it, but I found that I could not run without aggravating it. I couldn't be more than an arm's length away from a toilet in case I needed to suddenly go and empty out. And it was incredibly debilitating. And I needed to do something else. Heaven forbid I went into a swimming pool and experienced a bout of colitis.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so it was affecting my career. It was affecting my home life, my domestic life. So I thought I need to do something else. And I started Googling things and I found something called Strong Lifts 5x5, like everyone else did back in around 2009, 2010. And I started lifting. And I found suddenly I was adding muscle and I was adding useful body weight. I was adding different capacity and capability that I'd never experienced before. And then I thought back to my initial training, where I was talking about all these guys who would drop out. The guys who didn't drop out, the guys who did really well, were the big muscly dudes, of which there weren't many. And I think back, if only I had a few more stone of muscle at the time, I wouldn't have experienced a lot of the physical difficulties that I had.
Now, when you say big muscly within that cohort, you're talking somebody who's like 190, 200 pounds, not,
Yes.
For our audience, if you say somebody big muscly, you might be thinking like Michael Wolf, 275 pounds or something like that. But we're talking big muscly relative to a wolf kind of build, right? Or were they like 240 pound guys?
Yeah, so in that kind of territory, I'd say in my intake, I'm thinking of two particular individuals. I would say around the 210, 220 mark.
Okay. Yep.
The rest of us would have been much closer to 170, 180-ish.
Right.
And though that extra 30 to 40 pounds of muscle, because these weren't fat dudes, these were muscly dudes.
Right.
That's what I'm talking. And the ability to, if you can imagine, carrying 100, 150 pounds of additional weight on your back, that extra 40 pounds of muscle would have been very useful.
We had a client that shall remain nameless, but in a conversation said, I like squats and deadlifts and all, but being stronger doesn't really help me in my day-to-day job. So I'd like to do more core work and stability work, because that's really what I use. That's what enables me to carry, a ruck in one hand and rig a chain in the other hand and be able to do that stuff in my day-to-day job. Did you experience that kind of mentality? And how do you feel about that after experiencing being stronger?
For sure. It depends on what your role is, I think, at the end of the day. I'm going to assume that this person's role was very different from mine. And if you have a physical job that requires you to, close with and engage the enemy and something like that, I think being stronger is going to be more useful. But likewise, if you are lugging heavy munitions around, if you are fixing heavy machinery, like jet engines or, cluster bombs, things like that, strength is going to be useful. If you are administrating from behind the desk, maybe not so much.
Fair point.
That would be my initial take there. But I think the bottom line, Andrew, is that you need to move around fast. You need to be able to move around a long time. You also need to be strong enough to bear the task that you have been given. And if I had been stronger, I think I would have been better at it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Cool. I got into lifting and I was really enjoying it and feeling the benefit of it. And I think I can possibly backtrack because that's when I was married. So when I met Melissa on a blind climbing date back in 2001, that's when we hit it off. And, I was into hill walking, climbing, mountain biking, swimming. And that's what we did together until we got married. We'd go on holiday, we'd go diving, we'd go skiing. I'd go snowboarding because I'm a cool one. Really, that's what defined us as a couple and brought us together, those kinds of activities. And I kid you not, Melissa is the better athlete. She's half my size and weight, such a beautiful climber, a beautiful, incredible swimmer. And she got into running, when she met me. And I would tease her relentlessly when she was on her running journey. She'd ask me, hey, can I come on your run? I'd be like, okay, I'll run at your pace for a few kilometers. And then I'm just going to,
oh boy,
I'd get her to run to my hands.
Oh gosh.
But there came a time when I went, yeah. Yeah, I can be an absolute, I know, but
oh man,
I had the tables turned.
Yeah,
nice.
I went for my third tour to Iraq, to Basra. It was about 6 months, and she had joined the local running club as the secretary for something else to do and to keep running. So I went off to Iraq, and going for a run was really tough. There had to be a minimum of 4 people. You could only run at certain times a day. And so my running just fell through the floor. And she had been organizing the local 10K running race. And she said, listen, when you're back on R&R, I've organized the race. Would you run it with me? I'm like, of course I will, sweetheart. I'll run the first 5K at your pace, and then I'll head off and I'll see you at the end. She handed me my ass. No, she beat me by, she beat me by 8-9 minutes.
Oh my gosh. She totally beat it. Oh, wow.
And I couldn't believe it. She destroyed me.
You were like going all out. That was a legit crushed you by 8-9 minutes. That's awesome.
I had my honor to preserve.
Yeah.
But what she didn't tell me is whilst I was away not running, she was running competitively in the local cross-country circuit.
Wow.
So she was preparing for my demise. And then it took me a year.
Man, she just didn't tell you this whole time.
Yeah, she knew exactly what she was doing. She played me so hard.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Well, I love her.
It took me a year to get my testicles back from her handbag to finally beat her in another race. So that's how Melissa and I got together. Then we had our first daughter, Isla, in 2010, and we moved down from the north of Scotland to Suffolk in the southeast of England. And Melissa was pregnant with our second daughter, Abigail, 10 weeks, and she suffered a stroke. And obviously, very, very unexpected, came out of nowhere. And it left her with, complete right-sided paralysis. She couldn't talk. She lost the power of speech.
While pregnant.
But yes, she was 10 weeks at the time. And so the good news is Abigail, our youngest daughter, Abigail's absolutely fine. She came through. She's our little sort of miracle baby. But Melissa had brain surgery. She had a craniotomy to remove a bunch of blood vessels and clots from the brain. And as a result of that, she's as likely now to have another stroke as you or I or anyone else. So she was healthy, great diet, didn't drink much, active, young. So it was a genetic malformation of some blood vessels that caused it. So after surgery, she was released from hospital and set about with some specialist rehabilitation. But the bottom line was that she had persistent right-sided weakness and lack of sensation down the whole right side of her body. But she learned to speak again very quickly. She regained the power of speech. But as you can imagine, it destroyed her confidence. And she lost sense of balance. And so all the things that she loved to do, she couldn't run, she couldn't bike, she couldn't swim, she couldn't ski, all these things in the immediate aftermath.
From a timing perspective, was before or after your IBS? Was a little bit before?
So my IBS came on, was diagnosed in 2009. So this was in 2011. So 2 years had gone by.
Really close to each other.
So now you guys are both kind of battling with new challenges.
And to throw into the mix, if you think about the month that Melissa was in hospital, I'm a new father. We know that Melissa is pregnant. And I had this very real potential that I was going to become a single father. And I was also facing potential medical discharge as a result of the colitis. So I was potentially about to be an unemployed single father. So that was the whole nebulous of these things kind of all wrapped together. But then, of course, the focus was very much on Melissa, rehabilitating her and bringing her back. And so we had a lot of specialists. We were very lucky. The hospital that she went to, Addenbrooke's in Cambridge, is the place to go if you have a stroke. And then there was some specialist physiotherapy stuff just around the corner in Stowmarket. So we were well served, but there was only so much they could do. And I was looking at, okay, when this runs out and we return to Scotland, how are we going to service this? And I started looking at alternative careers, and I was looking at dietetics, I was looking at physiotherapy, and I thought, hey, I can get involved in Melissa's rehabilitation. And I started looking at Open University biology, nutrition, genetics, all these things. And I qualified in 2014 as personal trainer and a sports massage therapist. And when I finished my last tour in Afghanistan in 2014, I then transitioned and became a civilian in the real world with a view to assisting Melissa's rehabilitation. And we only got so far. We could only do so much. And up until very recently, we were not able to have her run, climb, do any of these things. She had a lot of great help. There's a fantastic local physiotherapy practice called Move Forward in Elgin. And they are on like some cutting edge rehabilitative stuff. And they put electronic devices on her and stimulated some movement. But we just couldn't get her moving the way we wanted. And we were in this frustrating position that we just couldn't do the things that we like to do together. And we hadn't been able to do that for 3 or 4 years. I opened my own gym in 2017, and I signed up with Barbell in 2018 as a client. And at this stage, I had been trying to coach Melissa. And you may have seen some of my scribblings and blogging on this, and my opinion on training your significant other, coaching your significant other. We were running into a bit of an impasse. And I think the issue was I was trying to coach, and Melissa was still in a very vulnerable position. And I just wasn't the guy. She needed someone else to be coaching her. The relationship that we had just didn't allow us to be in that kind of one above the other relationship. And so I found the value of having my own coach was insanely good, and thought, right, we need to get you a coach. And we put her on the club program. And as chance would have it, we ended up with Joel Rasmussen, who coached her for a couple of weeks. And I don't know if any of the listeners know Joel, an amazing guy from Australia. And he was like, Melissa, I don't want you to move on to the next coach. I want to keep coaching you. And, because Joel has had every injury under the sun. He's hurt himself in so many different ways and recovered from it.
It's true. It's amazing.
He has a specific interest in rehabilitation. And so we put her with Joel, and she's been with him since 2019. And what I will say is, in January of this year, Melissa was skiing again.
Wow.
Wow.
In the summer of this year, she was cycling again. She's swimming again. And she's taking Abigail climbing. In the space of a year, we've seen the fruits of what Joel's been doing with her. And, she has been squatting and deadlifting and bench pressing and all these things and doing chin-ups. And we're in this situation. It was hard. It was frustrating. So many ups and downs and back and forth and experimentation. And suddenly she's doing these things again in a very, very short, compressed period of time. And that's what strength has done for Melissa. It's brought us, well, we've never been apart, but it has brought us back closer together because we can do things again. And the cool thing there is that the girls have seen it all unfold in front of them. And, hey, they had a gym all to themselves during lockdown for them to come across and play with all the toys and climb ropes and things like that. And Abigail is a pretty much carbon copy of Melissa. A great little runner, great little gymnast. But interestingly, she has no competitive urges at all. She just loves to do these things for the love of doing it. I would love to mention Isla here too. If they ever come back and listen to this podcast, Isla, our eldest, she is a natural athlete. She is a beautiful runner, a fantastic swimmer, but she's also autistic, and she has sensory issues with feeling that sort of uncomfortableness, that being out of breath, the cold, icy grip of being out of breath and sweat. It's a sensory thing that affects her. And so she doesn't get into it. She knows the benefits. She's seen them. I just hope in time it's something that she can grow into and enjoy with us.
I am finding myself overwhelmed with emotion about that story. So sweet.
Hey, I know it's pretty heavy, isn't it?
Well, and inspiring. The first question that comes to my mind is I'm curious what the ripple effect was. It your interest in strength training that brought Melissa in, and then your kids seeing their mom training that kind of got them interested? How did that process unfold? I think that's a common question that we get from our listeners and from a lot of our clients, is they feel the passion and they're curious, like, how do I spread that joy or get my family involved to lift with me?
That's a cool one. And again, this may be fairly unique if you think about the situation.
I would say you're in a pretty unique situation.
Yeah. Yeah, the both of us we clearly share the same interests, which I think is one of the most difficult things, isn't it, to cross that bridge if you're into something and someone else is not. Because if they are going to try, it has to be their idea.
Yes.
You can plant some seeds, but you have to get them on board. So with Melissa, I think, she trusted me because we'd been in difficult situations before. where I'd be belaying her on a climb, or we'd be out on a winter mountaineering trip, where we have to implicitly trust each other. And so when it came to her rehabilitation, she saw what strength had done for me with the colitis. And she knew that my intention with the personal training was to assist her. And she probably saw me develop as someone who was not a coach. I'd been an instructor on various things, but not a coach. And I think she saw when I was working with other people, she saw the results that they were having and the impact that strengthening and the barbell work was having with them. She thought, this is good. But what I didn't have was experience of taking someone in her position and translating that into the barbell lifts. That's where we had that sticking point. And that's where going to see a coach is, absolutely invaluable. And so I think that's what got her in. She was hooked. And then, of course, she found and resonated with another coach who was speaking her language, who wasn't me. I have to add this in. One of the things with working with Joel, I mean, he's the loveliest guy, but Melissa would check her feedback at bedtime. So I'd be going to bed, and then Melissa would be like, all I'd hear is this rich, deep, Antipodean, smooth tone dude going, hey, Melissa, I just need you to
Australian
sit your butt back a little more. Yeah. I think there's Hugh Jackman, seducing my wife whilst I'm in the bed.
Oh, God.
And, I'd hear these and I'd start, and of course, I would then notice that the feedback that Joel would give, it would be like a carbon copy of the cues and observations that I would have made.
Right.
And so, for example, I'd watch Melissa squat and say, hey, darling, I need you to stay balanced on midfoot. I need you to reach your hips back, so we'll push your knees out. Of course, her reply would be, I am doing that. I am. And of course, when I'll hear, okay, listen, Melissa, what I need you to do is just stay on your midfoot and push your butt back some more and push your knees out. And I can see her twirling her hair going, okay, Joel, no problem.
So right. He's right every single time.
Yeah, funny, yeah. And so she clearly resonated.
Oh, man. That's a pretty good Australian
Yeah, that's pretty good.
accent you got going there.
Well, hey, oddly enough, I think that when the British accent goes abroad for a long time, everyone sounds Australian. That's what happens to the British accent. I was in the Falkland Islands in 2007. I thought that the locals sounded very Antipodean, but obviously they're a long way removed from Australasia. I think that's what happens to the British accent when they get sent to like a colony somewhere. But it was Joel's effect with Melissa. And of course, throughout that, the girls have just seen us extolling the virtues of being fit and strong. Daddy runs a gym. Abigail, bless her, has said a couple of times that she'll either wants to be a hairdresser or join the business.
Wow.
Yay. I'm really pleased that that's in her head. Whether that's going to happen or not, she can do what she likes. But I thought that was a great piece. And, Isla loves the fact that she has a Capricorn Fitness t-shirt and, and a hoodie. And I think it's just, being positive and just seeing it's such a big part of our lives. We've consistently trained in front of them 3-4 days a week for years.
And Andrew, your daughter, she's 13, and you're so good about wanting her to find her way of expressing herself. And she sees you in the garage gym. And I know she's kind of gone in there a few times. You never make her go work out. When she comes into the gym, you're always really great about finding ways for her to kind of play. It seems like. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I think making it play has been the thing that's, at her age, the most rewarding way of engaging with her. There was a period of time where I thought, okay, if I can get her doing some sort of squat, bench, and deadlift in a workout, then, maybe we can start to build from that. But that's never worked very well. But I always make sure it's an invitation for her to come in to the space. It's a little bit of a tricky balance because sometimes I get into a bit of a headspace that I don't think she likes to see. I get pretty aggressive with my training or violent with the barbell if I'm doing some of the power clean or the weightlifting movements. And I can get into sort of like what she sees as angry daddy mode. And that I think is sometimes hard to be around. But as much as possible, I just try to make it a standing.
So you turn off the tool and you turn on Taylor Swift.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's a big one, actually. She gets to control the playlist when she's training. And so over the years, it's been a lot of T Swift. She went through a Hamilton soundtrack phase, Katy Perry. Her having music control is a big one. And then her getting to program herself right now tends to be a big one. But yeah, she has yet to cross the threshold into any kind of structured training, though she's getting, I think, old enough that I would be interested in seeing if she would be willing to try working with a coach, because I don't think I could ever be coach, for her. Kind of like Mac is suggesting, I don't think it works super well to be dad-daughter coach for most either.
Yeah. I mean, I would concur. I think the idea of trying to make them squat, bench, and deadlift, I suffered exactly the same thought process. And they can move really well. Honestly, the two of them don't have my lack of coordination. They've inherited some quality genetics from their mother, and they've avoided a good handful of mine. And the idea of just inviting play is just so much more useful for the kids.
Yep.
They've fallen into things that they like. So Abigail loves her chin-ups.
That's the same with Clara. She loves those.
And if I think there's a good measuring tool for potential boyfriends there. Anyone who comes calling round the house will be invited to see if they can do more chin-ups first.
That's awesome.
Well, on that note, I've told Clara for years now that anyone that wants to be a serious partner for her has to at least commit to training to squat 405.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
That's my barrier to entry, is that you don't have to squat 405 today, but you need to commit to squatting 405 someday.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, I think some kind of physical barrier is a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. The music selection, you're talking about Taylor Swift and whatnot. I'm really lucky. If I let Abigail command the decks, we're going to get Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Evanescence.
Wow.
Not my doing. My doing. I discovered this very, very recently. We've got some good crossover with my taste in music there. We're going to be okay.
Cool.
Is it even a gym if Linkin Park hasn't been played in there at least a few times? Like, how else will all middle-aged people get angry without the help of Linkin Park sometimes?
It's true. Oh, I know. Isn't that insane? That's considered classic rock now. Oh my God.
Oh, Lordy. Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap things up. Thank you so much for telling that story and letting us know what that journey was like for you. It was so emotional for me because I could really tell that you were at these moments where life was so hard in so many ways. And looking back at it now, it was all wrapped up into, a 15-minute story, but can only imagine how just tumultuous things were for a long amount of time. And then I've seen Melissa squat. And she has this beautiful squat. She's just a gorgeous lifter. And going from not being able to move half of your body or being able to speak, and for you two to get there together is so wonderful. So thank you.
Hey, no, that's my pleasure. No, I think it's always good to be able to look back, isn't it? You know that at some point, whatever it is going to end eventually. And, it is a privilege to be able to look back on that, especially the fact that we can both look back at it. And the girls know that we went through it, and we've ultimately resulted in coming to a positive place. No, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we didn't even get the COVID aspect of the story, which was a whole nother chapter that was right in the middle of all of that, where you guys are opening and closing your gym off and on.
There might have to be a part 2.
Well, I definitely think there needs to be a part 2, because I also want to pick your brain about the golf pro that you worked with. So I think we should definitely sign up for another round.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today and for listening. If you got value out of this, we would love a review. We'd love 5 stars. Share it with someone who you think would also find value with it. And if you'd like to hear more from Mac or see more from him, you can find him on Instagram at Capricorn Fitness. He is also an exclusive coach here at Barbell Logic. His name is Mac McGregor, and you can learn more about us at barbelllogic.com. And thank you so much. We'll see you next time.